And welcome in, everybody. It is Thursday night live here at the Auburn University Club. I am Nathan King, here joined by Jason Caldwell. Auburn offensive lineman Braden Joiner is our special guest here. We'll get into it here in just a minute, and I'll pass the mic over to him. But obviously we're excited to get previewing Auburn's SEC opener against Arkansas. And so, Jason, if you want to tee it up for our friend Braden, we'll hand the mic over to him.
Absolutely, yeah. We're looking forward to this, Braden. We've known each other for a long time. It's a fun time for you. We've seen the product of work, all the things that you've gone through, and to get to this point. But for you, just talk about kind of the excitement of having that first real playing time last week, and now building on to this week in the SEC Open.
Yes, sir. I feel like last week was a special week for me, and just knowing that I had to go in and play, man, my preparation was exactly the way I wanted to. And this week, I feel like we're prepared a lot for this team, and I feel like we're ready to roll, and the game plan's in. We had a great practice today, good, perfect Thursday, as we call it, so I think we're going to be good.
Just talk about this kind of, when you get into it, have obviously a rough week against Cal.
Right.
You come back last week, new quarterback, kind of a change. What's the mindset and the mood of the team been like this week, with Hank kind of settling in a little bit at quarterback and kind of having to go with him now? Him getting all those reps, all those things. What's the mindset been for you guys?
The mindset is just to push Hank, man. You know, he's a young quarterback. You know, that hasn't really opened up to the SEC play yet. So I feel like we've been on a real good, and I feel like the Hank's mindset is there. And we still push Payton. You know, those guys, they're going to play both. You know, we need both of them guys. And, you know, Payton's a leader, so we still talk to him and stuff like that. He still talks to us, you know, just like as he was a quarterback one. But Hank's going to have a good week this week. I feel like he's going to dominate and bounce back.
Braden, for those who haven't, heard you talk this preseason and the beginning of this season, talk about your transformation over the past year. Not only your growth as a player, but I know you've given a lot of credit to Auburn's nutrition department. Mm-hmm. Just talk about how you've developed over the past year since you got on campus.
I've developed a lot. When I came in, I was 358. Now I'm 308. You know, lean, muscle. But I feel like last year helped me out a lot, just mentally and physically. Like, just knowing that this is a different game than high school, and coming in playing here is going to be harder than it looks. So me coming in preparing for that, get my body right, going against the ones every day on scout team actually pushed me to go better. Going against guys like Marcus Harris and Justin Rogers and them like that, those guys pushed me to where I am today. So I feel like I'm ready for the game now.
You've played center. You played both guard spots. You're now kind of the guy at both left guard and right guard, being the next guy up.
Yes, sir.
What's that like for you when you have? We talked about it this week. You have to know the entire offense. Right. You have to kind of get a feel for everything. What's that been like for you to try to prepare for potentially 2, maybe even 3 roles?
Right. I feel like it's good on me, just like for me as a next level standpoint. You know, everybody wants a center, like on the scout team and practice squad and stuff like that, and you need a lot of centers and just have a lot of mindset to the game, you know, learning the game and stuff like that. Coach Thornton has helped me out a lot, just being focused on the game. Me, Connor, we have been real focused on the game since we were here last year, and Gunnar Breeden helped us out a lot to get to where we are now. And I feel like when me and Connor are out there, we really don't have to say too much because we just look at each other. We can just know like what the call is and how to get the adjustments right. And it just helps me out knowing where everybody's going to be at that point in time after the ball is snapped. So I feel like that's just a good thing for me to play in all 3.
Braden, do you feel like this offensive line now heading into SEC play, do you feel like maybe the chemistry is where it needs to be right now? Because I know Tutal was injured. Left tackle was a good competition between Percy and Tyler. Obviously, you're now in a swing guard position. It seems like maybe this is the group that they wanted to go with from the beginning of the year. It just took, for injuries and other reasons, took a few games. Just kind of talk about how you feel like this group can move forward now in SEC play.
I feel like we'll be good because I feel like we build a lot of chemistry. Like we're with each other about 10 hours a day. We see each other a lot. We go eat dinner with each other. We hanging out with each other. Like me and Percy are one of the close friends. Me and Connor are close friends. Like we're just all close friends. And then like during fall camp, we bring in a lot of transfers, so like that. We just had to build relationships and stuff like that. So I feel like these dudes, all 11 of us can play if we needed to. So like I feel like that second group is elite too. Like we have elite players on the first and second group, and the chemistry is high. We all practice together, so we all know where our weaknesses and strengths are. So we just help each other out in that standpoint.
What's it like when you go and get ready for an SEC game and you start to get into league play?
Yeah.
how do things ramp up on the practice field? I know every week you prepare the same, but it has to have a different feel when you start the SEC play.
Yeah. There's definitely a different feel in the air. You can definitely feel it like we're going out there, we're like locked in, everybody's locked in, like, hey, Coach, what can we do more to help out the team and stuff like that? And I just feel like that's going to be a good look for us, and I feel like Arkansas is a good team to open up to in SEC play with that type of defense they have, the rushing defense and our rushing offense. I feel like it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, we talked to you a couple days ago. This Arkansas defensive line, they've got some players. Mm-hmm. They've got some guys who could potentially have NFL futures. Right. Just talk about what you've seen from them on tape this week and what you're going to be going against on Saturday.
I feel like those guys are going to be NFL players. I feel like 3 of them are going to be definitely NFL players. 5, 40, and 50 are going to be definitely NFL guys. And 5's got he's good at the run game. I feel like both of them interior guys are good at the run game. Pass game, not so much, but 40 is an All-American defensive end. Like, we got to keep an eye on that kid. We had 3 sacks against Bama last year, so I feel like I feel like that's a standpoint right there.
Braden, when you talk about run game, obviously that's a big deal. You got to be able to run the football. You got to be able to run it and run it well and establish that. How much of a mindset and a focus has that been this week? That's
been a heavy mindset, especially with Coach Thornton and Coach Freeze, man. They just want us to sustain blocks, get the double teams rolling out the ball, get the D-line running out the ball, just being able to open up the gaps for Jarquez and Damari, and when you open the gaps for them, you know what they can do.
Braden, last one, and then we'll let you out of here. We appreciate you giving us some time. Just how much are you guys looking forward to this opportunity? Obviously, the Cal game didn't go how you guys wanted it to. How much are you guys looking forward to this opportunity against what is a good defense in Arkansas? Because you're going to see some good defenses down the line in the SEC.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be a good game, man. I'm actually excited for my first SEC game, and I feel like other dudes are excited, man, that haven't been in this culture, that are transferred in. We have a lot of guys that haven't been here at Durkin, and the SEC games are different in Durkin, so I feel like it's going to be a lot of hype up for this game, and it's going to be a good environment.
Great, man. We appreciate you coming out, hanging with us. We know it's been a busy day, and obviously heading into the weekend, it's going to be a fun time. But for one more from me, just talk about how the importance of the fans. I mean, you've had a couple of non-conference games that weren't as big.
Right.
How much has that been a benefit to you guys as players to have the fans there, to have the students there early on, Tiger Walk, and knowing what it's going to be like moving forward now you get SEC play?
We need our fans a lot, especially on that defense on the third down. We need the fans roaring and stuff like that. I feel like the fans are a big part of the way we play on defense and stuff like that. And then they just bring the energy for the game for us. Even if we don't have energy, they bring it up even more. Like, even if late in the fourth quarter, they're still there bringing us on and stuff like that.
Thanks, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all.
Good luck this weekend. We'll see you on Saturday. All right.
That's Braden Joiner, Auburn offensive lineman in his second year now with the program. And Jason, I mean, this is somebody who has made tremendous growth. I mean, we talk about the need for a backup offensive lineman at a couple different positions. I mean, you mentioned it. He is now the guy that is going to be in that swing guard spot for them. Also a guy who has snapped the ball, and something that I know Braden has touched on a bunch this preseason and into this season. Because of his late father. This is something that means Auburn high school guy. This means something to Braden Joiner to have this opportunity.
It does, and folks can't see off camera. I kicked over a cup of water, so they're having to clean up after me over here. But first fumble of the night. It's obviously important. It's a big deal. This is a guy that has worked for this, and you mentioned, you think about losing 50 pounds in a year to be able to play and to play at a high level and to do those things. It's been really big for him, and it's allowed him to play because he talked about it earlier this week, said, look, we weren't really sure if Braden was going to be able to play and to be able to do it at this level, and he has put the work in, he's playing well, and he's earned the right to be one of those guys that's in the rotation for this team, and so I think he's a guy to watch for as they get ready for Saturday.
Jason, let's talk about Saturday. This is the SEC opener for both teams, Auburn and Arkansas, 2:30 Central Time on ESPN. This is a game that, we knew for Arkansas heading into this season. We knew Sam Pittman, whether his job is on the line. I think some people thought at the end of last season Arkansas might have decided to make a move. So there was a lot of pressure heading into this season. These teams' resumes so far and kind of what they have done, kind of comparable. You had Arkansas go out. Both teams have won non-power games, and both teams have played in the non-conference and lost. Arkansas went on the road in week 2 and lost to Oklahoma State. And Jason, we were watching that game before the Cal game. That's one where Arkansas got to show off, it's shiny new offense. But at the same time, that's a game I think the Razorbacks felt like they should have won. They went out to Stillwater and played well, but they made too many mistakes. If they make those same mistakes, they're probably not going to win at Auburn on Saturday.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact stat, but there was some stat from that game where teams were like 377-1 when they outgained the opponent by like 250 yards, and the one loss was that Arkansas game. And so it was a game that you normally don't lose games like that. They threw for over 400 yards. They ran for over 200. They held Oklahoma State's rushing attack to less than 100 yards, and to lose that game was pretty wild to see. And so this is it's a much more talented team than the Arkansas team that Auburn faced last year. There's no question about that. Line of scrimmage, they're big, they're physical. If you break this one down, this is old school football weekend to me. Now, they're still going to be throwing the football, they're still going to do all these things, but boy, with the quarterbacks and the guys in this game, the team that runs it better and stops the run, to me, has a massive advantage come Saturday afternoon.
Well, DeQuindon Jackson for Arkansas, I believe, is the SEC leading rusher at the moment. Taylon Green, Boise State transfer at quarterback, is a guy who can do a lot of things with his legs. The Bobby Petrino hire this offseason was one that drew a lot of eyes. Obviously, it was an interesting situation there with him coming over to a team he was formerly the head coach of. But Jason, you've known Bobby Petrino some time. I mean, it's not as just because he's been coaching a long time doesn't mean he has forgotten how to coach. This is a guy that's going to come in here, and if Arkansas plays clean football and they're able to run the ball, this is a team that's going to score some points. For Auburn on the other side, Jason, Hank Brown, talking about the new quarterback for Auburn. When we were recording the show last week, we didn't know what Auburn was going to do at quarterback. We theorized that maybe we would get to see Peyton Thorne and Hank Brown together. It ended up being Hank Brown the entire way. Obviously, Holden Garner got a little bit of run. This is a game to me, Jason, that comes down so much to the game plan. Because you mentioned it running the ball. You do not want Hank Brown out there playing a lot of hero ball in this game. You want him playing within the system at the same time. Probably going to be a couple third and longs and big plays he's got to make with his arm.
The absolute key is for Auburn especially is to avoid third and long as much as possible. You don't want to have a bunch of third and long situations Saturday. That's not going to be good news because Travis Williams is going to bring pressure. They're going to attack Hank Brown. That's why I think you're going to see a lot of run blitzes early on. I think Auburn's going to have to throw it early on to show that they're willing to throw the football against a team like this and against a defense like that. So to me it starts, I think they're going to have to throw it some early, but I thought last Saturday Hank Brown playing within the system is the way that he has to play. I think that's who he is, no matter the opponent. I think you have to do those things. The thing about Hank is, and we've heard the coaches and players talk about it, he's the best deep ball thrower that they've got. And so when you're talking about deep ball opportunities, when you stack the line of scrimmage and say, hey, we're going to run blitz you on first down, there's going to be some of those one-on-one opportunities that you're going to have down the field. And so I think when you look at that, I look for, Hank to have some of those opportunities, some of those chances. And if they can hit on a couple of those early, then it changes the entire complexion of the game from a confidence standpoint and probably from Arkansas standpoint of what they're able to do on defense.
Yeah, you mentioned him there for a second. Travis Williams, Jason, is coming back to Auburn this weekend. I did the calculations a couple days ago. 104 games for him in Jordan-Hare between his time as a player, then he was a grad assistant, then he was an analyst, and then obviously he was an assistant coach. This is a big opportunity for him. Now in the SEC, he was a guy that did a good job with Gus Malzahn there for a couple years at UCF. First of all, Jason, he was a guy I was around for a couple years, but this is somebody, they still play his Tiger Walk song in the stadium. He is somebody who acquitted himself very well to the Auburn family while he was here. Just kind of talk about your memories of Travis, because he was somebody who went from being an all-SEC player, somebody who thrived in that system with Gene Chizik, to being a guy who, when he was a coach here, just was beloved as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna age myself a little bit. My memories of Travis start when he was at Spring Valley High School in Columbia, South Carolina. That's where he's from. He's a kid from South Carolina, had a ton of tackles, and South Carolina didn't offer him. He comes to Auburn and ends up being an all-SEC guy, a guy that was a leader of a defense that was really good, obviously part of an undefeated team. And so, it's been a 25 years since I've been doing this. That was one of those first years for Travis that he's been a part of things that I've known him. And so I think a really good football coach, a guy that obviously young guy, I think tends to be more aggressive, and I think Auburn will be prepared for that, because I think that's what we'll see from Travis on Saturday. But no, this is a guy that obviously he loves Auburn. He always has, and it's always going to be a part of who he is. But when guys leave, the game you want to win is when you come back home. And so I think he's a guy that's going to be really fired up about coming back to Jordan-Hare Stadium on Saturday.
Yeah, I asked Sam Pittman about that this week, about Travis, and Sam Pittman said, look, it'd be silly not to acknowledge that. He said, look, if the defensive players for Arkansas can get something out of that, if they can find some motivation in that, then obviously that's going to help out. Jason, speaking of motivation, this is a game that last year just was a complete landslide. I believe Arkansas was a favorite in this game, maybe 2.5 points, 3 points last year. Ended up being 48-10. You and I were there, just kind of shell-shocked at how things went. Hugh Freeze talked about it this week. He said sometimes games are like that. Games all take a life of their own. Sometimes they snowball, but Arkansas players talked about it this week too, Jason. That left a bad taste in their mouth. I think that's sort of created a little bit of an extra edge in a game that has a fair bit of pressure for both teams to go out there and try to win their first SEC game of the season.
Yeah, for different reasons, this is a big game. Obviously, it's early in the year. You've already lost a game for both teams. Just in general, this is going to be a big game. But when you think about a big game from Arkansas from a Sam Pittman standpoint, it's a big game because you got a lot of games left on the schedule that are very losable games for you. And you've already been kind of tenuous at best after the last couple of seasons. So that makes it a big game for Arkansas. From an Auburn standpoint, it's a big game because you've already lost at home to Cal, and you know what's ahead of you. This is a difficult schedule, as it always is for Auburn. But for you need to get off to a good start, play a strong game heading into Oklahoma next week, because you have to take advantage of these 5 home games. And boy, if you were to drop another one, and then you have Oklahoma still to come, then all of a sudden things begin to look a little bit different. And there's no danger in terms of job security, anything like that.
Right.
But you're trying to build a program in recruiting classes, all those things. One loss doesn't have an impact on a recruiting class. But if you're talking about a couple of games here or there, it can start to impact things a little bit. And so you're trying to build confidence, build it moving forward, and build some momentum. You've had momentum on the recruiting trail. Now they're looking to build momentum on the football field for the first time, because last year they never really had those opportunities. Can you start to build a little momentum, and especially heading into next week if you can get a win?
Yeah, I mean, that's something, if we can just kind of stick on that subject for a second, Jason. I mean, this is a team that, one game cannot define you, but like you said, a couple games can potentially begin to not define a season, but get you in a rut that you don't want to be in. This is an Auburn team that going into that first real game of the season, the first real challenge against Cal, they had all these upgrades on offense. They had all these upgrades in the passing game. We had heard all offseason about Peyton Thorne and what they were going to do to set him up better for success in his 6th year as a college quarterback. Now you're in a situation where, look, you haven't hit the reset button on those things, because a lot of those things still exist with Hank Brown at quarterback. But to your point, this is now a situation for Auburn where I think if they can get back on the right track, not only winning this game, I don't really think it matters what the score is in this game. It matters if you can get some proof of concept that Hank Brown can maybe do it moving forward. Or, look, I don't think, there's not necessarily, Peyton Thorne doesn't have, not an opportunity
Correct.
To go in this game, I will say. I mean, I think it'll be Hank Brown the whole way, but Peyton Thorne is right there. He's an experienced guy who knows this offense very well. I think you've got to see something out of the passing game on Saturday to be able to feel better, because like Braden said, lots more good SEC defenses coming down the line.
Yeah, I mean, like Peyton Thorne's still a guy that's 100% the second guy, in my opinion. I don't think there's any question that he would still be the guy you turn to if you needed to make a move at quarterback. We saw it last year. We talked about this last week with Jalen Milroe and what happened at Alabama. A guy like, he comes back and starts playing really good football, and he continued that throughout. Who's to say it couldn't be the same thing for Peyton Thorne? I think it's a very real possibility. But I think now you look at it from an Auburn perspective, how do you build the offense around Hank Brown? Because it's different. It's a different offense for Hank Brown than Peyton Thorne. I think less quarterback run. I think more of the short game, more control passing, moving the pocket probably. You don't really have to roll Peyton Thorne a ton, but I think he'll do some of that stuff with Hank Brown and roll him away from some pressure, some of those things. And so how you are able to kind of build it around him, and again, going back to the thing, he made really good decisions last week, but there wasn't a whole lot of pressure. Now the pressure is going to get ramped up. If he can make the right decisions, it's still a game where he can go out and play really well, and I think he has absolutely the ability to do that. Now can you deliver when guys are coming after you? Because that didn't happen much last week.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a big challenge for him regardless. I mean, Braden mentioned it. Landon Jackson was really the one that stuck out to him as being an All-American type guy for that Arkansas defensive line. But he pointed out 3 players who could be NFL guys for Arkansas's defensive front. That's going to be a really big factor in this game. But, we talked to Hank earlier this week. I think you asked him the question, Jason. And it's going to be a challenge regardless for him. But, getting some film where you are a starter and you have that whole opportunity. And I think maybe that's why in hindsight, not that, we should have seen it coming last week with him starting, but it makes a lot of sense, the decision to give him that full game.
Yeah.
Because you asked him, getting that opportunity. Because he mentioned in this game, there were a couple throws early on that he was like, maybe shouldn't have done that. Or there were better options to go on the field. Free said he graded out really well in terms of all his pre-snap checks, all that kind of stuff. We saw him sort of grow into that game, regardless of the numbers, regardless of throwing 4 touchdowns. I think we sort of saw him grow in confidence over the course of that game. Now you're in a situation where we saw it in practice this week. You get the reps with the ones. That's no longer a question. And you have that film to be able to go back and say, okay, this is what I need to do. Because, legitimately, this is a guy that even going back to high school when he only started 1 year, this guy hasn't had a lot of those types of full week starting quarterback opportunities, and now he's obviously got that against Arkansas.
Yeah, I heard someone talking about Nico Amialeva. I know I wasn't going to say it right as soon as I got it, but at Tennessee, and said, look, sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And I think it could be a big advantage for Hank Brown that he doesn't have a lot of those ghosts that he's chasing going into a game. He knows what he's done in practice, and he's played in games, and he's been confident, and he's been successful in all those opportunities. He doesn't know about failure in a game. I think sometimes that can be a positive. You see these young guys go out and have success because sometimes you don't understand, hey, how hard this really is. And so I like it in this regard that, hey, he got some snaps under his belt. He got a chance to go play, start, know what the feeling's like of knowing going into a game you're the starter. But I think the difference this week is that even though Hugh Freeze said he knew last Monday who the guy was going to be, he didn't really tell anybody till Friday. Now you're going to have a full week that you know you're the starter, a full week and I think one of the big things is that I think people might be under the impression that, well, you just go run the offense and you just go call plays and that's what you do. All week, Hugh Freeze and Derek Nix and this offensive staff will be able to sit down with Hank Brown and go, okay, what are you comfortable with in this situation? What are you comfortable with doing here if they're doing this? So you can tailor your calls, all the things you're doing to what your quarterback is most comfortable with. That's a big deal. And so they probably did a little bit of that last week. They're going to have a chance to do a whole lot more of that heading into this Arkansas game.
Peyton Thorne has been Auburn's quarterback for X number of weeks. It was a guy that Hugh Freeze sought out in the portal last year. I'm not saying Auburn built their offense around him, but it's been somebody that they've been blueprinting for quite some time. And so like you said, Jason, you don't just plug somebody, especially somebody like Hank Brown who has differing skill sets. And that's something I'm interested in this game that might become a factor. Hank Brown is not as athletic as Peyton Thorne, but at the same time, I think Auburn's going to need him to offset some of that. Look, he's 6'4". You mentioned, the arm strength that he has. I think that's something that stood out about Hank Brown all the way going back to the Music City Bowl last year was that sort of confidence in, I'm big, I'm tall, I've got a big arm, I'm just going to deliver the pass in there. That's what I'm interested in this game. How will the first sack, how's he going to respond? 2 sacks, there's some pressure coming off the edge.
Correct.
How is he going to respond over the course of a game? And it's exciting, it's going to be interesting because to this point, we really don't know those things about Hank Brown yet.
No, and I think one of the things, you're right, he throws the deep ball really well, got a strong arm. I thought last week the only situations he really struggled in were the short passes where he just kind of underthrew them and threw them short. Some of that had to do with the weather because it was awful. It was terrible weather there for a quarter and a half. But how does he handle those situations where I'm throwing an out route, I got to zip it in there and I got to get it there in a hurry. And so because it is a different mentality with an Arkansas defense versus New Mexico. So it's going to be much different in every facet for him. One of the interesting things, and it's been a lot of talking point this week, is Auburn trying to get in the Wildcat and trying to take a look at the Wildcat. And obviously, with Jarquez Hunter in the backfield, New Mexico just shot out of they were out of a cannon. How do you change that? Can you change that? is that where Peyton Thorne can be involved in putting him back in there, maybe in short yardage goal line? Maybe you get Sam Jackson involved. I mean, they do have some options, but it looked like last week that, boy, that Wildcat look, teams are just going to attack you even though you're trying to outnumber them in a box.
Yeah, I mean, as we sort of continue to go through a lot of these matchups, Jason, you mentioned, winning the line of scrimmage in this game is obviously going to be such a big thing. Jarquez Hunter has been really good so far this season, but his opportunities, I think, have been shaky because of kind of how the game settings have gone. Hugh Freeze admitted it. New Mexico came out in an interesting-looking front, in a mint front. Last week, it took about a half to get adjusted to that. But they are going to absolutely have to lean on. We mentioned, you don't want Hank Brown playing a ton of hero ball in this game, or maybe you do. I mean, we'll see what he's able to grab. He's got. We'll talk about injuries here in a little bit. But, he's got Cam Coleman probably. He's got Keandre Lambert-Smith. This is a game, though. I don't have the stats in front of me. This is going to be kind of an off the dome thing. I think Jarquez Hunter has played well against Arkansas in his career. He's played well against a lot of teams in his career, a lot of SEC teams, and so with LaQuindon Jackson on the other side and Taylon Green on the other side, this is the kind of game where we talked about it with Braden. If Too Tall Miller's back, this is maybe the offensive line you wanted from the start. And so getting them rolling, getting them staying out of downs and distances, that's something Hugh Freeze brought up against Cal. He was talking about all those opportunities. He said, look, guys, we were backed way up. Look, we had a 3rd and long. I think Hank Brown only faced 2 3rd and longs against New Mexico. That is, that's a big key in any game, but I just wanted to kind of touch on that because we really haven't seen Jarquez Hunter carried it 20 times as a career high last week. I felt like that kind of went under the radar a little bit. He is one of the best running backs in the SEC, and Auburn's definitely going to need him on Saturday.
Yeah, it's a stat that I've been talking about now since the preseason after going back and looking at it and going, well, Jarquez never had 20 carries in a game. He finally got that last week, and you saw the results. I think you look for Jarquez, Damari Alston. I think one of the keys for me is if they can't have that, we put the ball on the grass. I think in the last couple of games, both of them have put the ball on the turf and had a fumble. Now, they haven't lost them. They've lost a couple of them. But you can't have those things in a game like this. Turnovers are going to be vitally important. I think Jarquez is absolutely a guy that will be a big part of this. And I think as a receiver, we see him, he's caught the ball a lot better. Damari Alston, Jeremiah Cobb. We saw the check down, the short passing game, some of those things. Those are the things that I think may allow Hank Brown to take a huge step forward because you're not always going to throw the ball 25, 30 yards down the field. He didn't do that last week, and it paid off for him. So I think that's one of the things to look at. Obviously, a big part of things there. So before we get to injuries, I know that's a big part of things. Folks, if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like it, subscribe to us on that YouTube page, and then check us out, auburnundercover.com, part of the 24/7 network. I think 30% off right now is for new subscribers. Get Paramount Plus with that too. So it's a great deal. So if you haven't checked us out before, come find us there.
Yeah, and thanks. We'll talk about it later on, but thanks to AU Club, of course, for sponsoring.
Absolutely.
Like they have every week. I know people out here on the golf course were happy for the weather because when we were here this time last week, it didn't look like this outside.
A little nasty last time.
Yeah, Jason advised me last week when we tested out to go mow my lawn on Wednesday, and I did that, and I'm glad I did because I wouldn't have had a chance to the next 5 or 6 days. Jason, we'll get into some matchups here as we kind of close out the Arkansas preview. We've talked a lot about offense. Defensively, this was you and I talked about it on Saturday after they played New Mexico. There were some concerns you could point to because although Devin Dampier, the New Mexico quarterback, he only completed 50% of his passes. You were sort of wondering, okay, what is that going to look like? You're probably going to see a better version of that in Taylon Green next week. I think that has probably been, we talk about this DJ Durkin versus Bobby Petrino chess match. They were both on the same staff last year at Texas A&M. They went against each other every single day in practice. That's going to be really interesting to watch. But it kind of goes without saying, containing the edges, whatever DJ Durkin schemes up to do that is going to be a really big key in this game because Auburn secondary has struggled. You can't put them out on an island in this game.
No, I think the first thing you look at, for me anyway, is when you look at Taylon Green, this is a Colin Kaepernick-looking quarterback. Yep. Now, I'm not talking about no political stance. This just on the football field. This is Colin Kaepernick-like. I mean, he's 6'5", 230. He can run, athletic, throw it enough, but he can throw it enough because of his running game that it makes it really dangerous. And so this is a much different guy. I mean, this is a guy that can get to the edge of the defense in a hurry with 2 or 3 steps. I mean, he's got a long stride. And I thought last week we saw Auburn play base, really soft defensively. Said, hey, look, we don't think New Mexico is going to run it enough for us to have to worry about putting extra guys in the box. I think sometimes it costs the secondary a little bit because there was so much time to throw the ball.
Yep.
Those guys had to cover a little bit longer, had to stay longer. I think this week you're not going to be able to live like that, because if you put 5 guys in the box, Arkansas is going to run for 250 and you're going to be in trouble. So I think you're going to see more guys in the box, help out more of those guys. We saw them be really aggressive in the first scrimmage we saw of the year. They did some of that against Cal. We haven't seen that to this point. Now, I don't think you can afford to all-out blitz a guy like Taylor Green a bunch and leave your corners on an island and play man, because if you break containment, it's a 70-yard run. So I don't know that you'll see 6-7 guys. You might see some zone blitzing and do some different things there to kind of keep your eyes on the quarterback. Eugene Asante could be a really important guy this week, because this may be a week that you shadow a quarterback and spy a guy every once in a while. And so for a guy like Eugene, that could be a part of things on Saturday defensively.
Well, when you said that about Eugene, I was reminded of our trip to California last year when they won that game at Cal. He played such a pivotal role as kind of his breakout game against Sam Jackson when Sam Jackson was at quarterback, wanting to do a lot of those different things. I mean, the blueprint is kind of there. You hate to simplify it that much for a mobile quarterback like Taylor Green. But, I mean, look at what UAB did last week. They contained him. They kept him from breaking out too often. They had kind of, like you mentioned, they had kind of that extra spy. 11 of 26 passing for Taylor Green with an interception. Look, that Arkansas knew what they had. I think he was a 52% passer in the Mountain West at Boise State. Like, they knew he was going to be high highs and low lows. I think this is a game, Jason, that because of that, because of their quarterback situation, because of what Auburn has in Hank Brown, it can go beyond how the quarterback plays. I think I was talking to Trey Biddy today, who covers Arkansas for 24/7, and he was saying, this could be the kind of game where Taylor Green goes out and does a bunch of good stuff, but Arkansas still has other areas where maybe they're a little bit deficient. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to watch. Of course, I wanted to get in just real quickly here, Jason. We still want to do a bit of a recruiting segment. Got Christian Clemente waiting over here. This is a new one. The SEC availability reports. Get used to it, everybody. And they're going to be updated every night from Wednesday to Friday, all the way up until 90 minutes before game day. If you haven't seen it, basically it's not necessarily an injury report, because somebody could be on there for a variety of reasons. It is just simply, I think it was kind of implemented by the SEC so that people aren't calling players, aren't trying to get in contact with players about gambling. It's to sort of avoid all of that.
I think this goes directly back to Alabama baseball last year. Brad Bohannon and kind of, hey, my starting pitcher's out. Well, somebody then runs and puts a $50,000 bet down, and then it becomes an insider trading situation almost. This is a way to avoid that, where you go, hey, it's out in the open, because, hey, as much as I don't like it, gambling is a part of college sports, of everything that's happening now. And so you're having to try to keep it above board as much as possible.
Yeah, I'll go through these, Jason, and you kind of give me your thoughts at the end. 2 guys who are definitely out for this game. Tyler Scott, we've known about since the offseason, a redshirt freshman cornerback who tore his ACL in summer workouts. Brandon Frazier, really unfortunate news for him. He's a guy who's given a lot to this program. He's a 5th-year senior there at tight end. We can talk maybe a little bit about what they might do at tight end because of that, but he had foot surgery. Amaris Williams is interesting. 5-star defensive end. We saw him at practice on Tuesday. He looked fine. They've got him here as doubtful for this game, so it'll be interesting to kind of watch. Cam Coleman, they have him down here as questionable. Had that shoulder strain, didn't go last week. I think we would be surprised if he didn't play on Saturday. We already mentioned Xavier Miller, the starting right tackle. He looked fine at practice on Tuesday. Would be surprised if he doesn't give it a go. Alex McPherson is questionable. Haven't seen him kick that much yet, so I think that's kind of a question mark. Antonio Kite, Jason, I guess we'll just kind of stop here and talk about the secondary guys. You got Antonio Kite is questionable. Kayan Lee is probable. Champ Anthony probable. Antonio and Champ, I mean, we knew Champ had that minor ankle kind of early in the year. I don't think you can afford to have much of a problem with Champ and Antonio Kite in this game, especially because Kite has definitely emerged as the number 3 cornerback.
Yeah, no, I think I would be surprised if we don't see all those guys. We saw them out there Tuesday. We saw Antonio Kite practicing, Champ Anthony out there, Kayan Lee out there. But you're right, you can't afford to have anybody missing in the secondary. And this is not a team that's going to throw it a ton, but I think you look at it, one of the keys for me has been looking at the size of the Arkansas receivers. That's why a guy like Antonio Kite and J.C. Hart, too, could be really important this week, because they got a 6'7" wide receiver. They got another 6'4" wide receiver. They have a bunch of those guys. So the DBs are important. And then getting back to Brandon Frazier a little bit, you mentioned tight ends. Obviously, we saw Micah Riley last week. He's going to become an even bigger part of things, but they're also going to move Jaden Muskrat to tight end. And he's not going to be a guy that's going to catch passes or anything like that, but short yardage, we mentioned like Wildcat, short yardage goal line. You could see Jaden Muskrat. I don't know. We don't know what number he's going to be yet. Maybe it's 48 or something. Who knows?
Number 1.
You will recognize him when he goes on the field because he's not going to look like a tight end. But it'll basically be an extra offensive lineman. And this is going back to Ben Grubbs. He did the same things when he was here and wound up being an NFL offensive guard. So another way to get you a little bit more beef on the offensive line at times.
I think they did that a little bit last year too with Muskie.
Yeah, Muskie did some of that last year as
Kind
well.
of the up back.
So looking forward to kind of seeing how that works out for him.
Yeah, and then we'll pass it over to recruiting here in just a second, but I want to mention a couple for Arkansas. This is a beat-up secondary for them. Jalen Braxton has been one of the more exciting young cornerbacks in the league over the last couple years. They've got him as out. Hudson Clark has been playing there forever. A veteran safety, they've got him out as well. Those guys, Patrick Kudus is an offensive lineman who's been out a few games, and so that adds an extra element, I think, potentially. I mean, I don't know how much you can necessarily change if you've got him out right now, but 2 defensive back starters for Arkansas. For the last few minutes here, want to turn over. Christian Clemente has joined us here on the stage here at AU Club. Christian, talk about what could turn out to be a pretty big recruiting weekend. Obviously, that's to be expected here in the SEC opener, but there could be a lot of guys on campus for Auburn in the recruiting department on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be huge, which Jason, we've gotten accustomed to under Hugh Freeze and this staff. That's what they always, every recruiting weekend, you don't think it's going to be one like that. Like New Mexico, we didn't think it'd be like that. Well, this one, Alabama's on a bye, Georgia's on a bye. Okay, everybody come on down. And Auburn's getting everybody that they really want on campus. Jason, we have to start with Deuce Knight because that is what everyone wants to know. 3rd game visit this season. He's expected back next weekend for his official visit. It's, we were at a when, not if. Kind of started to trend towards an if, not when situation because it kept going on. Now you're getting him back twice in a row, and you feel like you can potentially seal the deal over these next 2 weeks, but you need to get it done. I don't know what it's going to take because Auburn has already gotten in a great position with him, but it's getting over that hump of telling Notre Dame. Can he tell Marcus Freeman, who he's built such a great relationship with, look, I want to be closer to home, I want to play in the SEC. So far, he hasn't gotten to that point yet. I don't know what can change over 2 game visits when he's already been here for 2 games, but you hope for the best if you're Auburn.
Yeah, no, it's obviously Deuce Knight's an important part. I mean, when you're looking at recruiting, your quarterback in any class is going to be a big deal. And so I think you look at it, and I had a thought earlier this week, and it said, look, he looks like he's going to be back this weekend. To me, if he shows up on Saturday and he's on campus, knowing he's going to be back next week, I would find it hard to believe he doesn't wind up in this class. But that's a whole lot of visits to happen for a guy that's committed elsewhere. You're right, just got to do it now. And can they get it done? Can he say, hey, I'm in, let's roll, sorry Notre Dame? And I know it's hard. It's hard to tell somebody no. But sooner or later, I think Auburn, Deuce, Notre Dame, everybody, they're going to have to go, okay, let's figure out what it is. Yeah, you too as well, yes. So that's one of the big guys that's coming in this weekend, obviously, and there's still some names out there too that are going to be on campus or expected to be on campus as well.
Oh, there's a ton more names. I mean, you stick in the state of Mississippi, 5-star wide receiver Caleb Cunningham, a guy who visited a bunch throughout the process, took his official visit at the beginning of his process there in June, names Auburn his number 1 school. That was obviously the huge headliner over the first couple weeks there of official visits. Jason, I remember, we talked to him, and then you kind of ran to write the story as quickly as possible because it's a huge headline that Auburn's the number 1 school. A couple weeks later, he goes to visit Alabama, commits to Alabama a couple weeks after that. But Auburn has stayed in communication, and we've mentioned it. If Auburn gets Deuce Knight, this is a guy, they're close. They're both from Mississippi. They're guys that have known each other for a really long time. For Auburn, you had to get him on campus because he's going to the Alabama-Georgia game next weekend. But I also don't think it's a huge coincidence necessarily that he'll be on campus at the same time Deuce is on campus. You love to get those guys on campus at the same time, get them talking with each other a little bit about what their potential future could look like at Auburn if they were to team up together.
Yeah, no, it's anytime you get guys on campus, guys that are friends, and knowing how much of an impact it could have, that's a big deal. And so I think it puts a little bit more importance on going out playing well this weekend, especially offensively. Go out and make some plays with the passing game. Cam Coleman, wide receivers, Keandre Lambert-Smith, make a couple of big plays in the passing game. I think that's going to be big. That's what guys want to see. They want to see what you're talking about. Can you back it up, and can you go deliver in a game like that? And so perfect weather, perfect opportunity to come out and play well on Saturday, to showcase your program, fan base. I mean, the fans have been incredible. I would expect nothing less on Saturday. I think it's going to be a big deal, and you got a chance to go off and showcase your program.
Yeah, we've stayed local, as Auburn has kind of stayed local in recruiting, but they've also built up a nice little pipeline up there in Maryland, Jason. St. Francis, of all places. DJ Durkin is really the main guy there that has that connection. He's built that, obviously, from his time at Maryland, I think DJ was at Michigan, correct? For a little bit. And so he's built up a nice little connection with the staff there in terms of the high school staff. So you've already got Blake Woodby committed. You've got Bryce Diaz committed. Wayne Henry in the 2026 class. All three of those guys expected back in. They're bringing some of their guys with them as well. Darion Smith, the 3-star defensive lineman, committed to Tennessee, who Auburn offered the day after he committed to Tennessee in the 25 class. He'll be in for his first visit, or he's at least expected in. And then their teammate, Jair, I think is how it's pronounced, Edwards, a 2026 safety who's ranked as the number 2 safety in the country. So Auburn's going to get both those guys to come with the trio from St. Francis that are committed. Huge opportunity because you don't always get to bring guys from Maryland down on campus for game visits.
Yeah, no, it'll be big deal for Auburn. And again, having guys that are committed as part of the class allows them to kind of showcase their program, their team, and kind of tell those guys, what they saw, let them see it for themselves. And so, I think an important part of that weekend visit as well. Obviously, big weekend everywhere around when you look at this one. From a recruiting standpoint, game standpoint, team standpoint, program standpoint, everything about this weekend, Nathan, is big, and it's a big opportunity. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this thing turns out.
You mentioned that I think that this is a little bit bigger of a game for Auburn than maybe they thought before the season started. For Arkansas, look, I mean, you don't want to beat around the bush here. I mean, people have been talking about Billy Napier since that Miami game. Sam Pittman has been a guy that, has had those conversations. At the same time, Arkansas loves him. Like, he's a guy that they play for. And so I think it's something to note here, Jason, is that Freeze has kind of had Sam Pittman's number. He beat him at Liberty a couple years ago. Obviously, they blew the doors off of them in Fayetteville last year. But we want to thank everybody for tuning in. I think the audio on the digital end was even better. I want to shout out Patrick Bingham, who is behind the camera right now.
The man, the myth, the legend.
You didn't see it, Jason, but I mean, every recruit you guys were talking about had a little graphic popping up for each of those guys. Thank you to everybody here at AU Club. Hopefully everybody enjoyed Thursday Night Live and is ready for Auburn versus Arkansas on Saturday.
Yep, kick off the weekend here at AU Club. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys again next week.